Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to the RESSummit 2026 Day 1. We warmly welcome you to this roundtable on water and agriculture, exploring pathways from risk to resilience. And we are grateful to ICARS for organizing this and giving us this opportunity to have this very important discussion around risk and resilience in the water and the agriculture sector. Um, so in India, there is a requirement of India extracts 245 cubic billion liters of water every year, and around 87 to 90% of our water is being lost in through groundwater extraction. Yet, there are stories coming around from the world which is posing on questions and risks in terms of changing climate variability, rainfall patterns, livelihood risk across the sector. Culture being a key sector holds the brunt of the climate change. So we're just here to, we are gathering here to bring out voices across research, academia, innovations, technology, and farming community to hold this important discussion on how water is seen as a risk, what we should be aware of, and what are the possible solutions that is coming and surfacing across, and how can we build actually a, set up this dialogue around it. So I'm very pleased to welcome our distinguished panel of speakers for today. We have Shri Vishwadeep Ghosh, Country Director for Water for People. We have Shri Riddhish Soni, founder of OMSAT Technologies. We have Shri Murlidhar, Director of Sustainable Agriculture, WWF India. We have Shri Kiran Kumar, Lead NRM Communities, RITI. We have Dr. Jitendra Singh, Climate Scientist of Clim Agro Analytics. And we have Shri Sarabjit Sahota, UNICEF DRR Specialist. So Sarabjit sir will be guiding us through this dialogue and setting up the context, and we'll explore, we'll share voices, we'll have a beautiful conversation around water and learning about risks, various stories from the ground, and the resilience that's coming across. With this, I'll pass it on to Sarabjit sir. Sir, please take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Sulipta. In my own work on disaster risk reduction and climate change mitigation and adaptation lately, um, two decades of work, I've always said that water scarcity, if we want to discuss it, we got to discuss it with the farmers. There's no other way of looking at solving this issue, because farm sector already uses, as you said, Sulipta, that 80% of the water is being used by farm sector. Distress in the farm sector is well known. We had lots of farmers suicides, etc., in Maharashtra and other parts of the country. But the farmers are also very resilient. They've been adapting. They've been innovating, particularly to the changing climate. So the key question today is not only about water security for the country, but also the resilience of the farm sector and the farmers themselves and their families. So today the core question that we're going to take is, what is most critical shift that needs to move from water risk to water resilience, particularly in the agriculture sector. So I'll leave all of you to reflect on this particular question. Who wants to go first?
Yeah, thanks. This posing up a question, but before I come to the question, I wanted to address some of the issue which already has been raised about the water risk. Just to give you, the water use is not a risk, right? So farmers, which the farmers, they have been using a water. That's the common pool resources to create a larger good. Larger good means they have been turning, the water into the food, right? And the food is really, the valuable resource for, the human existence and the survival. So the use is, particularly when it comes on the water use, water is being used for a productive, the purposes rather than, non-productive purposes. And the only question comes when we are talking about the risk and the resilience side is about the sustainability of the water which is available, right? There is a problem rather than the use, because what we have been seeing over the time, the lot of emphasis has already been done in order to improvise the use efficiency rather than the making sure water is available for the use. So we see there dichotomy in terms of the policies and the investment which is coming on. The second issue, before I pass it on to the somebody would be the wanted to the get into the discussion. Uh, the second issue is that we haven't given a more from the policy and other perspective, more emphasis on to increase the the availability. Now, how you would going to increase the availability? I'm just giving you example of Punjab. We have the cropping systems who have been the consuming water more than it is available. So we created some sort of negativity over there. Unless we address that issue, we will not going to balance it out. The water balance it out means the water should be available for the consumptive use. And there we have seen from the north to south, east to west in India, we don't have a policy which turn around the use, which should be proportionate to the the availability. So I will come the on other viewpoints and let the other speakers the ponder on the question on that which you asked.
Consumption.
Yeah, I think interesting topic, Sarabjit. Thanks for kicking us off. I just want to build on what Murli said. See, as Water for People, we are categorized as an organization that works on WASH. And through our journey, I'll also elucidate the silos and the fragmentation that we ourselves are sometimes victims of in the water sector. So, like all organizations in the WASH, our focus is on enabling access to sustainable and equitable access to water and sanitation services, primarily looking at drinking water. So, why does a organization that is working on drinking water need to focus on agriculture? So, what we realize is that when we talk of drinking water access, it's primarily a infrastructure like the Jal Jeevan Mission program, which is to identify a safe source of water, connect it to overhead tanks, lay pipes to people's house for drinking water. But the problem is that 90% of the drinking water supply, especially in the rural areas and 50% in urban areas, comes from groundwater. And like Murli, you mentioned, groundwater is a common pool, and I would like to underline this term. It's a common pool resource, right? So, which has a very distinct way of managing commons as opposed to looking at the same water as a private resource. So, when water becomes a common pool resource, like you mentioned, Sulipta, and you highlighted 90%, 80 to 90% of it goes to agriculture, the same water goes for drinking. So, in some sense, drinking water security and agriculture security or food security is linked by a trade off, right? Because it's a common pool. If you take out more for agriculture, it will leave less for drinking. And if you try to conserve less for drinking, it doesn't take care of the livelihood needs. So, when we talk of risks, I think it depends on how you manage this trade off, right? Between agriculture productivity, which is the goal of all agriculture policy, and in our quest to increase our food production and achieve agriculture security or food security, we tend to extract more and more water. And the example of Punjab that you gave, or that's all part of the Green Revolution story, is built on that, right? So in the first 60s, we were food insecure but water secure, roughly around 50 million tons of food grains, to today we have roughly around 160 million tons of food grains, but we are addressing or dealing with the issue of water security. So that's why this paradox or the inverse relationship between food security and water security is a challenge, if that's a way to frame our discussion. And that is where much of our work across eastern part of India, western part of India, and in the mountain regions is teaching us in some sense. We are still learning, but I think it'll be good to hear from others who have some more experiences on dealing with the same issue.
So good you mentioned about the whole trade-offs which we have to work with, and trade-offs have to be discussed with the farmers and the communities. So may I bring in Kiran here, that when you work with the collectives, the farmer collectives particularly, how does the discussion, where do you center it? I mean, they obviously, as you said, Mr. Deep, that they're more concerned about productivity of the farm sector. But how do you start and where do you end?
Yeah, thanks. See, when we start interacting with farmers across the states where we are working, usually they start sharing their own challenges. If you look at the farmers, they will always say some 4 or 5 major challenges. I will start in a top-down order. Like the one is market volatility, which is actually deciding the price. Then there is increasing cost of cultivation in agriculture, which is really affecting their lives and livelihoods. And there is rising temperatures or whatever the climate change which is being happening around agriculture. And there is a serious groundwater depletion which is happening. But for all these things, the root cause is actually rainfall variability, because the entire groundwater is depending on the surface water, the rainwater which we harvest and which will rejuvenate the groundwater sources. So when we talk to the farmers about all these, the groundwater management or a kind of the source sustainability, these things, they will ask a simple question: should we focus on the economy or ecology? Okay, if you start focusing on the ecological aspects, then they should really compromise on the economical aspects of it. And if they focus on economical aspect of agriculture, and then definitely there will be a kind of groundwater depletion and a lot of other things will come. So I think, how do we bring balance between this economy and ecology in agriculture is the kind of the answers which the farmers are looking at.
Wonderful that you brought us to this conundrum between economy and ecology. But do you at all face the need for more information on to get the dialogue going? May I request both of you come from that very scientific background, Jitendra and Ridish, if you would help us, how can Kiran get better access to information, knowledge for the dialogue with the farmers, and eventually dialogue for protection of ecological assets such as water?
So thanks for organizing this event. So yeah, definitely I can provide some academic perspective. So like I just want to highlight some of the stats and how like inefficient or less efficient our agriculture system is. So for example, like as you already mentioned, we extract or consume roughly 70 to 80% of the surface water, and given that much amount of the water, are roughly a 50% of crop areas is irrigated. So half is basically completely depend on the rainfall variability. So for that perspective, basically, I feel we need to focus, shift our focus from supply side management to more risk informed agriculture system, basically. And when we drive these policies, and sometimes I feel like these policies also being developed in a bit of isolation. Let's say, for example, energy policies. There is a subsidy on the electricity, so farmer pumps more water. But at the same time, we are talking about a water conservation. So there should be a sync between agriculture policy, energy, and water policy. And for that, basically, we really need to include the farmers in the whole this basically agriculture system. So I hardly see like there is any, I mean, some data is available from the farmer side, but we really need to go and ask farmers and try to understand their farming management, like what kind of measures they say. I mean, it's not like they don't understand. There is a clear-cut evidence in the literature when there is a like El Nino, La Nina year. So when there is a El Nino, then we expect less rainfall over India, and when there's a La Nina year, then we expect more rainfall year. And based on that, this crop area, this basically shift basically. You will see farmers are growing more water intensive crop during the La Nina year. Somehow they got this information. They have this hunch basically. So I feel like we really need to include the farmers when we are designing this like, you know, whole system basically to water resilience, to agriculture resilience. Yeah.
Ridish, before I come to you, I want to tell you one instance. I was talking to some farmers in Maharashtra, and I told them that we made a nice early warning system which can give you real-time information on a daily basis or even on an hourly basis on what's going to happen in terms of climatic weather patterns and long-term trends also, and etc. etc. And so would you mind making changes in your cropping pattern as per the whatever information I'm bringing in terms of okay, it's going to rain more this year and it's going to start raining in particular week, etc. If I bring you that information, will you make changes to your so that all the farmers said no, no. We've been doing this for many years since our forefathers, so will not. It so farming is a complex matter. We sometimes try to bring it down to data, evidence, etc. But farming is farming. No, it's very complicated. Ritesh, would you like to reflect on that from a very sort of the way you've been looking at water, agriculture, productivity from a satellite and Chandrayaan? We keep hearing about that.
Yes, thank you, sir, for sharing. I'll also mention the fact that one of the incidences that really, was a game changer in my life journey. And talking about Maharashtra, the southern region, which is consisting of 8 districts, is called as the Marathwada. So this is coming under the drought hit regions, one of the severely drought hit regions of Maharashtra. And if I consider the three major variables, say one is a technical element, one is a socio-economical element, and one basically if we talk about the nexus basically, so whenever there is a water crisis, it triggers a food scarcity, which in turn triggers a migrational crisis. So it's a vicious triangle. So if you see recently in the year 2023, when the rainfall was relatively low compared to the preceding years, 50,000 farmers from Marathwada migrated from rural to urban areas, thereby increasing the stress on the urban resources. Now, talking about Bangalore crisis, what happened was not suddenly. It was the stress, the northern and the central part of Karnataka was getting dry, due to which massive flooding of rural to urban migration started happening, which Bangalore utilities were not aware of it. So we cannot as a rural stakeholder, we cannot avoid them in terms of the stakeholders that are part of the water ecosystem value chain in terms of. So talking about one of the major socio-economical concern in water discovery, underground water, is like in Maharashtra, people used to use coconuts and twigs for finding groundwater. So these people are called as panadis in our local language. So they used to come and say that, okay, I'm 100% confident, you go for a borewell. So the cost of one borewell is somewhere between 1 lakh to 2 lakh in Maharashtra, considering that average depth is from say 100 to 400 feet. So when the farmer doesn't strike the well, he still has to pay the sum for the drilling, which is not possible for him considering his socio-economical situation. So in term, he doesn't get loans from banks, because ultimately banks end up accumulating non-performing assets in the form of dry wells, and then they get into the vicious circle of money lenders, and the vicious cycle keeps happening, which triggers them to do certain severe consequences, such as farmer suicides. Yeah.
What level of complexity we are dealing with, from banks to so you've really brought really eliminated the whole issue so broadly. Now what is the solution? Where can we, how can we start accessing solutions? I would suggest that take your time and get on to the solutions now.
Will you allow me? Yeah. Just, the going back the question which you asked, which you just mentioned about the how difficult, the cropping pattern changes are from the farming point of view. We all wish to, have, the new cropping system which would, the de-risk farmers and bring, the resilience. The problem with that, the why farmers are not, the changing shift, because their whole infrastructure, back end and the forward infrastructure is being tuned to the crops which they grow. For them, it would be difficult to turn around, the tomorrow to leave, the say sugarcane and go with, the any another crops, which might be more resilient than the sugarcane. But, then who will going to buy? For them, the question would be, and do they have, the enough infrastructure to get, the into the new crop? There has been a lot of initiatives, particularly, the policy initiatives has been taken, particularly in Punjab, Haryana, and, the other parts. Those are the, the food basket, where, the policymakers, they have been trying to, the shift the cropping patterns. But why they are not, they have been pumping the money from, the different kind of, the schemes and the mission in order to turn around the cropping pattern. But the farmers are not able to change. As I said, their back end and, the forward infrastructure is very much tuned what they grow. From my point of view, that there should be some transition, and the gap phase needs to be there, which could, at this point of time, the one can't prescribe, the how long it would be, 3 years or 5 years. I don't know exactly, but we need to do a deep dive analysis, the how much time, the farmers needs to turn or transitioning from his current cropping system to the future cropping system, which would might be more resilient and de-risk the farming. That needs to be, the done, and from the research point of view, it could be 3 year and 5 year. Now the question is what farmers would going to do in the transition and the gap phase. There we can, the offer, the incentives so that the farmers can leave a land. This, this could have been a dream in those places where, the farming systems are really making a lot of stress, and then give opportunity to them to transition to a newer system with the readiness, right? So this could be, the scenario, but this could not be a scenario for all over India. Because as we know, the India is very complex. Regional wise complexities are there. It could be taken as example in, the some states as a pilot to see, how the turnaround would be. So I'm leaving.
I actually wanted to take that from, so since you mentioned about policy, now from policy to practice, how does a farming community or an FPO looks at and policy level intervention at the ground? So when we talk about transition from traditional crop to commercial cropping system, and then we come to climate smart practices or resilient practices, that is again a shift that Sarabjit sir actually when we started the conversation with. Now the shifting from a policy, from a technology, is kind of guiding the farming community directly and suggesting changes to do in their current cropping system. So I would like to ask Kiran, how do you see such changes or strategic shifts being perceived from the grounds, given that there are changes in policies, there are technology interventions, there are financing opportunities that is coming out of it. But how does farming community really perceive it when it is talking about changing from traditional to commercial and then smart and then perhaps traditional again?
See, basically, I think I'm sharing it based on my own experience of working in various like irrigation systems across India, starting from Mahar Pain system in Bihar, Talab and Ban system in central India, open well no irrigation system in Maharashtra, village tanks and ponds in South India. So there are five critical areas which the farmers are actually looking at. The first one is soil health management. In fact, in agriculture, soil is the foundation. But unfortunately, many times we ignore soil and we straight away get into water and no other aspect. I think how do we manage soil health decides the future of agriculture. Number one. Number two, water security. Water security, like Jiten said, I think are we addressing both the supply side and demand side management, or are we focusing only on one side of the issue? See, to have an effective water security or water management system at village level or farm level, we need to focus on both supply side management and also demand side management. Then the third important thing is like crop diversification and crop rotation, which is very very critical. So that's where like your commercial to going back to our age old millets or those crops or whatever which is happening. And the fourth, which is very very important, is income diversification. I think this is where like you said the trade off between that economy what we are talking. Reducing pressure on the water sources will happen when you have this income diversification at farmer level. Now, pushing them to get into some other agri and allied enterprises or non-farm enterprises, so that their dependency, complete dependency on agriculture will reduce. That will indirectly reduce the pressure on the groundwater or surface water sources. This is the fourth one. And fifth one is technology adoption, which is effectively working wherever we have tried. But the only issue which the farmers are seeing in this technology adoption is the liberalization of data and technology. Is the data and technology available to the farmers? Because they are the ones they are supposed to use this data on day in, day out. But unfortunately, none of this data or technology is accessible or affordable by the farmers.
Thank you so much. Murali, you spoke about transition, and Vishwadeep, if I come to you, during this transition phase, what will the farmers need? And what kind of services, what kind of policy? And you hinted on many things which farmers would need, and you brought us to that very important solution that if we can diversify the farm sector, they can go beyond farm and start looking at other things, other livelihoods. So Vishwadeep.
Right. So while from a policy point of view, from a science point of view, we may agree that crop diversification is a good form of demand management, but it's easier said than done, because ultimately it rests on behavior change, and that is not very easy from the farmer's point of view. So what we have realized is that instead of changing that behavior as a part of that transition, rather than imposition of knowledge, if there is a way to empower farmers to take decisions on their own based on the data related to their land, the water resources, and of course the market signals. So today a farmer has to make two choices basically. How much water he or she has, what is the water availability, and what is the water need to respond to the market. These two may be different. There might be a gap in these two. Like if you are growing traditional crops and if you are going into paddy or wheat, which require more water, you may not have that water. So that trade-off that we were talking about, ultimately it boils down to how do you balance your agriculture based on the limits of extraction? Right, that data, and that is where I think what Ridish is doing, and that becomes very interesting, is because groundwater is invisible, you can't see it. Is there a way to make that water visible in an aquifer? So if a farmer and all the farmers that are taking water from the same aquifer, if there is a way for them to know how much water is available, it makes decisions related to allocations for crops diversification, much more easier for them to adopt, rather than having a fear factor. What if I do and the others don't? And the others are extracting more water, although my behavior is tuned to conservation, then it's a prisoner's dilemma. And we have seen that tragedy of the commons is not very unnatural. So in our own work and many of the partners that we work with, we've seen if there is a way to put the data of an aquifer in front of the farming community, more often than not, they take rational decisions. And these are social norms, like you asked, what policy needs to inform practice. So here, policy provides a framework, but the farmers decide the social norms, which then get institutionalized as a part of policy to give it some endurance. Like we've seen in Andhra Pradesh, in Maharashtra, where farming community have taken decisions not to dig deeper borewells, or having a moratorium on borewells, or pooling borewells in the case of Andhra to share water. And that is becomes possible only if the data becomes transparent, and that data becomes as a tool for empowering the community rather than adorning dashboards. Now that seems to be the trend. I just want, if you permit me, Sarabjit ji, just what else is needed. See, we're talking about the farmer. So our unit of change is going to be at a farm level, because every farmer is interested in maximizing their profits, like all of us are possibly, right? But in the context of natural resource, focusing on the farm level may not yield the balance that we are trying to achieve. Simply because the basin is a hydrological unit. So one farmer changing its behavior may not affect the system level change that is needed. So while we continue to operate with farmer as a household, as a unit of change, that how do we improve their income, but the operating model has to be a hydrological unit, which could be a basin, a aquifer, or anything, which has eluded the policy space for long. Because once that is done, then all the factors for production, whether it is trees, whether it is soil fertility, or water, if we see in that unit and do the allocation of all these three in a integrated manner that we call, in glamorous term, I guess, the integrated water resource management or any integrated kind of ecological principles, is what we are missing. Because Kiran and Vrutti, they are working on, let's say, agriculture, regenerative agriculture. We are working on drinking water. Somebody else is working on forests. And that is the story of my own journey. And while I've been worked on forest, agriculture, and water, we are all working in silos. So the system level optimization or system level water use efficiency or resource use efficiency, if we do not have the picture of that, if farmers do not have a picture of that, then to achieve long-term sustainability becomes relatively more challenging than it is now.
So you mean that farmers are the only one who can really do the system level integration, no? Because there is no one left in the whole system. Would you like to reflect on some of these things which Bishwajit brought out as a solution or as a challenging space in terms of policy making?
Yeah, so definitely. So the thing is like, I mean, the discussion is going on around like whether farmer will switch to the different crops. So when I say like switching to the crop, I just basically my idea was just in every region, like in a one season, farmers has like a 2 or 3 crops. For example, I'm coming from the Mathura, and their farmers are like sometimes owns the pearl millet and sometimes paddies also. So basically, The solution side, I see just an integration of the lot of data set. Sir also mentioned, you also mentioned. And I think like the problem, I mean, we should start from one step back. So during the sowing period, if we can provide some kind of a relevant information, and which is basically very precise to the local conditions, basically just like, let's say if I say at a block level or so, and we can suggest farmers, okay, this season is going to be like this. So because we have a sub-seasonal to seasonal forecast, and like there is a lot of institutions, IMD, we have a lot of climate data. But the only thing is lacking, like there is, we are not extracting some intelligence to make some informed decision for the farmer. So if we tell farmers like, okay, this is season going to be like this, and you have alternate crops like X, Y, G. And if you show like either X, Y, or G, basically, you have that much chance your crop will grow, your input cost will reduce, because once you shown the wrong crop, then you cost increase, basically you spend a lot of money on the input. For example, the season is dry because there is a, let's say, okay, there is less rainfall in the monsoon, and some farmers on the paddy and other farmers on the pearl millet. So if we calculate the profit out of these two crop, and when there is a less monsoon, then probably the farmers with the pearl millet will have a higher, profit at the end. So basically we need to start from the planning stage, provide some very precise information, very crop relevant, location specific, and we have a huge data basically. And then at the same time, like as a management, like we can prepare like a very simple solution. For example, the irrigation scheduler. So if we just take the very few information from the farmers, let's say just a geotag and which crop they have sown and what was the date of the sowing, just this much information is available. Every farmer can provide, and this app can basically just calculate the water valence, precipitation minus evapotranspiration, and the when this crop was sown, so at what stage how much water or moisture will be required. We can provide this precise information. So this kind of a tool data integration we need to develop, and when we are preparing
is
this,
it happening somewhere?
yeah, we are working basically. We are basically collecting a lot of data from the farmers, and also we are developing this solution basically if somehow we can leverage this seasonal to sub-seasonal forecast and provide some sense of like some information for the farmers so that they make a right choice, right crop basically based on how the season is going to be. So this kind of a solution basically I think like can be really helpful for the farmers. Yeah.
No, I think both of you have brought us to one understanding that farmers not only need transactional information for sowing, for harvesting, pesticide, etc., but they can also be leaders in sustainability. Yeah, and I think Bishri, you're mentioning that they can take, and we probably haven't done enough to take that level of role responsibility to the farmers and the farm sector as much as necessary, I think. Would you like to add something to this, or?
Yes, sir. So I would like to share a small journey from like development of a technology to making it reliable and affordable to the farmers when it comes to the entire value chain of the groundwater. So while I was working for the Chandrayaan 2, I was tasked for finding water on the moon. Chandrayaan 2, yes. So yeah, so I was tasked for finding water on the moon. So water on the moon is basically found on only on two regions of the moon, which is called as the permanently shadowed regions. So these are the regions where sunlight cannot penetrate. So that is in the North Pole and the South Pole. And this water is not in the form of liquid; it is in the form of ice on few states such as silicates and hydroxyl ions. So Clementine in 1996 was the first one to predict that there could be water on the moon, but Chandrayaan was the one which actually validated the presence of this precious resource. So talking about India, in India, I'm like India is divided into two different set of problems when it comes to groundwater. So everything that lies below Narmada, it is called as the hard rock region. So there the problem of availability of water is more severe. When you go north of India, where you talk about the Indo-Gangetic plain, the problem is more about the water quality. So both of these regions, have different kind of different solution sets to look forward to. One is about finding water, and second is about treating water. So So talking about one of the examples that we designed for a farmer in Latur. So the first case study that we did was there was this village called as Mavalgaon. It is one of the regions where there was no borewell since the last 60 years. And many people came over there and they failed, and Central Groundwater Board had declared it as a dark zone. So they're like, we are not going to work over here, and there is no presence of water. So the first question is whether technology is available or not. And I can say that India has technology, they have the mindset, but whether you can make that technology affordable to someone like a farmer, or whether it is just stashed in textbooks or in some literature that is lying in the library. So we worked out with the technology. We use a Japanese satellite which is able to penetrate into the subsurface and detect the aquifers over there. So when we pinpointed the location, the farmer called me that I am not going to go for drilling because I don't know you. I don't know trust. You may be a big scientist over there, but I want someone who can actually solve my problem. So I went over there and they actually held me as a hostage to be true. They said, unless I find the water, I will not leave you. And once water is found, if the water is not found, you will pay for the drilling. I said yes, and there were many people who came with that coconuts and twigs, and they said there is no water over here. I said drill it till 110 feet. So as the drilling was going on, the people started praying, and for me it was not a big issue because for us it is just an operational procedure. And when the water came, it was a very big thing. The farmer collected the first. In a small pot, he collected the water and walked barefooted from Latur to Siddhivinayak temple. So that is the power of faith. So once you are able to establish that trust, I think, and give those examples to the farmers, then the acceptability becomes a
Wonderful, wonderful. I think farmers need a lot of trust. Farmers need a lot of space to take leadership. I'll bring you, Murli and Kiran, into the discussion now, because we have discussed river systems and we have discussed aquifers. Now, from your wearing your hat of WWF, would you like to reflect more on the ecosystem services? How do we really get them moving?
Yeah, I can very quickly, but before I get into the ecosystem services, I just wanted to grab the lot of things which has already been said and will try to put the perspective. One is what Vishwajit was saying about the common pool resource and de-risking of common pool resource, which we are talking about the water, which I completely in agreement. There is not an individual kind of efforts to de-risk the resource which is shared by millions of the people in a basin. So we need to have some sort of the landscape kind of approach or watershed kind of approach where we can the bring very tiny kind of turnarounds and see how those tiny turnarounds can making a bigger change in terms of the availability of the water. What Jitendra was saying, that it can be, the plugged in a watershed approach, that we can see, the how the millions of the farmers who are in one basin are changing their practices and how it is leading to have a, the larger availability. I think this should be the, the approach in going forward. Second one is that in India, I think data, we already heard, the couple of presentation before we came into this consultation. There are a lot of datas, right? Datas is not an issue in India. We have a groundwater board, they have been collecting a data. We have agriculture or revenue department, they have been collecting a data, but we don't have a point of simulation of those datas, right? There's no integration, there's no system who integrates, a different set of data and give you the, the risk projections in order to, the bring the resilience effect. Now, coming back to, the, in payment for ecosystem services is again a very difficult territory. Is difficult than the sending the Chandrayaan in different part of moon. It's difficult creating the there are a lot of examples in India. A lot of people organization have tried earlier to create a, the framework where the people pay for the services which is coming from the environment. It hasn't worked, to be honest, right? And I don't think we should look up for the West, because the West has a lot of example to bring those example in India and create a larger framework. Our viewpoint is whatever natural health or treasure we have in terms of the national parks and the various national parks we have on both both on the land and also on the rivers. So we have a national park in Chambal. We have a national park that is on the river. We have a many national parks. They have been a lifeline for the riverine system. So in going forward, the getting into the, the payment for ecosystem services, our larger responsibility is to intact the natural habitat which we have in this country, in both, on the land and also on the river, to continue the services which we have been getting, right? So that investment needs to be, the put on, and it needs to be recurrent investment, because the state is the beneficiary. Their more responsibility to create a recurrent, the investment mechanism to intact the natural health of this country. Yeah.
Kiran, you want to continue?
See, there are three things, no, which whatever Shvadeep, Murli, and no, Jitin shared. I would like to bring the farmer's perspective. The first thing is crop diversity. See, which is very critical in terms of building resilience of the farmers, at the same time managing the water resources. But the three questions any farmer would ask you, if you go and tell him, go for a different crop. Three questions. It's a general questions. The first question what they ask is, how is the package of practices? Because I don't know this crop, how to grow. Number one.
What is the package of?
Practices, how to grow this crop. Because I'm new to this, I don't know. The second question is there a market for this question? Is there a market for this particular crop? The third question will be, like, what would happen to my net income? If any institution, you take it Krishi Vijnana Kendra or Agriculture Research Station or any agencies could answer these three questions, farmers are ready to get into this crop diversity. This is number one. Number two, like the community, like I was saying, Ridish, the initiatives, the community was not accepting. See, in my experience, working with, the farmers for more than 25 years, any initiative backed by institution, that's a community collective, will be sustainable. I think people believe only it comes through the institution which is related to that particular community. I think you may be from ISRO, you may be from ICR, you may be from some agency, but farmers will accept only when it comes through their own related institutions, which is nothing but community collectives. And third thing, managing this water at a basin level, river basin kind of thing. In fact, we tried this long back, handling this at a sub-basin level. But if you look at the complexity of handling this, water, management at a basin level, see, many panchayats has to involve, many blocks has to come, many districts, even the state boundaries will cross. I think it's very difficult to manage this, water at a basin or sub-basin level. Rather, panchayat would be the ideal unit where the users also present and it is easy to manage. The administrative setup is also very simple at panchayat level. Everybody knows everybody and it is very easy to manage rather than thinking of like a larger river basin or sub-basins. Thank you.
Vishwajit, you want to respond to this?
Yeah, so Kiran, we acknowledge that it is challenging to, but just because it is challenging, does it take away from the science of why it needs to be done? That's the question. So based on, we do agree that ultimately, as per the constitution, we need institutions, primarily strong institutions at any level to manage the resources properly. And panchayat is the only constitutionally guaranteed, as opposed to many of the institutions we tend to form as a part of NGO projects or even missions which come and go. But can we envisage a federation of panchayats in a basin to be doing the same thing? So each panchayat has to manage what's needed in their own jurisdiction, but at a basin level, it's just an aggregate. And their Ritish's technology, at least in terms of a estimation of the water, surface water, groundwater, rainfall, At a basin level, if that can be estimated, the action can play out at a panchayat level, the management of it. So that's one part. To your question on PES, I think that's been yes, it is again much more complex than sending a man to looking for water in moon. But it has been tried. It's not per se new. Like we have the case of Catskill Mountains in New Jersey. New Jersey gets its water from Catskill. They compensate the people in the Catskill to protect so that they get the water. Yeah, that is, I don't know how old, but that is fairly long time. And it is recognition of the basin approach on how the catchment of a basin contributes to water security at this level. In our country, it would be something akin to like Himalayas, we call as the water towers, right? They feed the Ganges, the Yamuna, Brahmaputra, which then feeds the plains of UP and Delhi. So, should people of Delhi, government of Delhi, be compensating the governments of Uttarakhand or Himachal or wherever to protect the forest so that the rainfall is captured the way it should be in nature, and then the slow discharge it is fed to people of Delhi. So that mechanism where these upstream downstream negotiations or communications can take place, we can take the learning from where it has been done and it should be doable. We have at a atomic level in Himalayas where the recharge side is on the other side of the mountain and the discharge side is on the other side. So basically for the communities to get water from the springs in the discharge side, communities in the recharge side have to do something, supply augmentation, but they will not get any water. So how and why will that community take an action from which they will not benefit? And there, because of the relationships that communities share and the trust that they have and the understanding of nature that they both have, they worked out a mechanism of sharing resources, like they will give access to fodder in lieu of access to water in the lean season, and that mechanism is working fine. So if this can be extrapolated,
Sure.
payment for ecosystem services can be thought of at a
Muralidhar,
larger
can you
level.
quickly reflect on this and then we'll get into the closure side of
Very
things?
quickly on that, uh, if the mechanism can arrive, right, to from Delhi to pay back to Himachal in order to intact, that would be the fantastic mechanism, and everybody should look up for that. Having said, we tried similar kind of model in Bhopal, right? So Bhopal lake is basically is now is one of the most pollutant lake, and most of the the nutrients are coming from the catchment where the farmers grow agriculture. So we tried, we tried, but the people were not ready to pay more cess to get the potable drinking water. So political, there are a lot of political risks are associated. If the willingness comes within the the political constituents without risk, keep seeing the risk, then that can be happen. So there are a lot of the models are available and that can be replicated. But again, there could be the political risk around it, because there will be implication on the cost of the water which we are getting in. Right.
Thank you, colleagues. I just want to flag, I won't get into the details, that government of Meghalaya and World Bank and others, they've done a fantastic approach to payment for ecosystem services, not someone who's using the service paying, but government paying for the service. Yeah, so that the ecological assets and resilience assets are maintained by the community. I would love to now listen to all of you for maybe 30 seconds or 45 seconds on the future. We're talking about 2047. Our farmers can't wait for 2047, 100%. They want things now. So over to all of you for quick reflections before we close down. It's been a wonderful listening to all of you. You've been giving us so many nuggets of wisdom. I couldn't get into this whole idea of the natural parks on the river, hence leading to wilder rivers. No, yeah, the wildness of the river has to be brought back. Sorry, we couldn't get into the whole thing, but over to you, Mul.
Yeah, quickly, I would like to know, like a closing thing. See, India is having a social farmers related social infrastructure in the form of farmer producer organizations. More than 45,000 farmer producer organization exists in India. I mean covering almost 23 million no farmers. How are we going to use this social infrastructure for working on this whatever the water security or building the resilience? In fact, we tried at Vrutti with a model called threefold model with a bundle of service approach. I think it's giving very good results. We are layering actually climate into farmer producer organizations apart from other services, and that's a very detailed thing that maybe we'll discuss a little later. So I think this, leveraging the existing social infrastructure in the form of farmer producer organization should be considered for any, like water or agriculture related the initiatives or the policies decisions. Number two, I think the moment we start treating farmers as partners, many initiatives will succeed. The problem in many of the initiatives which I have seen is I think we are treating them as beneficiaries or recipients of the services. See, one of our example from our initiatives on soil and water conservation with the shareholders of the farmer producer organizations. The moment we started saying, see, this is your own water body in the village and you are the owners of this. And we are coming to partner with you to restore this so that water security resilience can be built. The moment we said this, they have agreed to contribute 25% of the total renovation cost. Number one. Number two, they said we will take care of all no objection certificates or planning those kind of data collection, document collection from the government. You don't worry about it. Number three, they agreed to contribute for the creation of climate fund at farmer producer organization level, which is going to take care of the maintenance and management of the structures which we are renovating or creating or any climate related initiatives at FPO level. So this is the power of farmers, provided the orientation is.
Very quickly, within the 30-second, I'm talking about only the projects where the state has a control when it comes of the water, because most of the water, there's been controlled by the state in India, particularly irrigation department, and they have been the ones who have been, taking a shot when the water is to be released for, the consumptive use. The policy has been for, the long, in 1962, we drafted a location policy in India. And now looking forward from 2026 to 2047, I think we need to look back, what we have decided. And I see there is a lot of change because the things has changed. Earlier, the allocation policies when we prepared in 1962, considering, the Green Revolution and many other things. Over the time, a lot of things has changed, new efficiency structure has came in. So now it's a high time to review the policy and leave some water to run a river, right? So that should be, because then you will be having all the hydrological services, which we already missed it out. Like we don't have enough water as we speak in Yamuna. Now we saw pink froth yesterday. There was the news in today's paper. So it's coming because we don't have enough water to keep water in rivers to have the, the river alive. So we are just killing river over the time. And this is the right time to look back how we can revive and keep alive our river system, which we already has lost over the time. So this would be my final, the wrap-up comments. Yeah.
Get to him. There's also artificial intelligence being spoken about for agriculture. Both of you are scientific in temperament. Would you mind reflecting on AI as well?
Yeah, definitely. So, but I will start like overall solution. I agree, sir, what you said, like the FPU can be a really good solution because the farm size is really small in India, and if we can pool resources together, it's definitely can have a positive impacts. And other than that, like as you already mentioned, like this AI, so as I mentioned, like we have a huge data sets, like from the climate side, management side, and like satellites, imagery, and a lot of informations we have. And in the historical, basically, the climate change has been like we have witnessed, and so we really need a system basically where like farmer can handle both kind of a situation when there is an extreme rainfall or when there is no rainfall. So this kind of a basically, since we have like a lot of data and this solution can be developed. So we have to start with a very small problem and then start building on that. And like future projections of the rainfall says like the rain is not going to be too much because of like a lot of external forcings like aerosols, and also until like a 2050 or something, we might have like a moderate rainfall. It's not too much like increase. At the same time, if rainfall is also increasing, then it's like a mostly it's just kind of a pouring basically. It's not like a continuous rainfall across the season or so. So we really need to integrate like this AI kind of a solution, machine learning kind of solution. And like, for example, the crop health people are using, they just take a picture and AI just basically detect based on the leaf and color, then tells you like, okay, what kind of a nutrition deficiency your crops are having. For example, as I mentioned, like irrigation scheduler, so we can build like a machine learning AI kind of a model, so which can help farmers. And we need to, so basically the AI can be like a super technical terms, but the another thing I really see, like how we develop this solution and how we disseminate this information to the farmers, because that's where things start. When we are talking about agriculture, water resilient, and farmer sits at the core of these problems. So we need to include them, we need to listen them, and we need to design a solution so that they are easy for them to understand and act. Yeah. Thank you.
So I would be focusing my conclusion on only two points. One is that when you talk about conservation versus exploitation of groundwater, uh, these two activities have to happen in synchronization. You cannot say just we will conserve water. You cannot say just we'll exploit water. So what for a farmer it is very important to incentivize them to trade off their irrigable land for something like creating a recharge structure. What if there is a kind of a mechanism that incentivizes the farmer in the form of water credits that can be used for created into bonds and then sold to international markets, so that the farmer can be focused towards creating more recharge structures and enhancing the controlled depletion of aquifers. Second part is talking about one of the socio-economical miracles and one of the good projects that I've worked with in Burkina Faso was there the land. So farmer is not a land owner; he's a stakeholder, because ultimately it's like the land keeps dividing and everybody wants one borewell in its own piece of small land. So what they did is like for a specific village, they created a farmer producer organization, not in the form of it is a different form of organization. So they have a land where the government keeps auction, that whoever wants to buy this government land, the farmer can based on his own capacity, they can buy that specific land, and then they create those recharge mechanisms, and minimum distance between two borewells has to be 200 meters, so that sustainability is also happening. So whatever water from the catchment is coming in that specific part, that is directly, every drop of water is injected inside the ground, and this land is given on lease to the farmers, so that whoever wants to cultivate, they can. And there is a rotation between this, so it's taking care of the socio-economical aspects, that I am not the owner of this land, I'm just a stakeholder of this land.
The online questions also, we've started receiving some questions, but before that, Vishdeep.
That's a good sign that people are listening in. But yeah, I think I'll keep to the trend of summarizing with three key points. I think a lot of overlap will be there. So one, my dream till 2047 is to see that instead of having separate management and governance practices for water, forests, and agriculture separate, on the biophysical side, it should all be based on the governance of commons, right? So, because these are interrelated, so you can't solve a agriculture problem without solving for drinking water, and vice versa. And for sustaining agriculture, we can't do without the forest. So, on the biophysical side, let's look at all water together. starting with the rainfall, surface water, groundwater. What we didn't speak much about today is the used water or the wastewater as it is being called, because that will be a scarce commodity in future. But instead of having another institutional model to look at wastewater alone, why not look at all these things together? The second thing is, of course, related to the institution. Kiran, you are advocating FPOs. I have no problems with FPOs. It's the farmers. They are also consumers to drinking water. They are also doing non-farm activity. So, but I would emphasize two things as far as institution is concerned. One, that governs over the basin level or any hydrological unit, whether it's aquifer, a watershed, or a sub-basin. And two, not to fragment, you can have like water user committees taking care of drinking water, or FPOs looking at the agriculture water as a part of the same institution. That is critical because that will unify the data that Jitendra has been talking about. Otherwise, that will remain in silos. The third, on the policy side, I think also we valued it too. We didn't speak much, especially in the case of agriculture water, is the externalities, how well we manage the externalities like energy. So the problem to agriculture, I mean, we start with saying that problem to drinking water, solution to that lies with agriculture, and solution to agriculture lies in the energy sector, because as long as these perverse subsidies exist, it is very difficult to limit the extraction of groundwater in absence of any data. So externalities like energy, markets, the price fluctuation, whether that is by policy like the PDS or the MSP, that ends up determining what kind of crops farmers choose to grow. Or because we are having this discussion in the current times, war, for example, I mean, if this prolongs, it is said that it will have a direct impact on fertilizers access to. So I think the stability and peace is what we should all aspire for, at least 2047, if things have to be sustainable. And I want to end with a point that we started with, is the tension between ecology and economy. To say that by 2047 at least we would have proven, it's a false dichotomy, that these two are not opposed to each other, in the same way that we are not outside nature, we are part of nature. Nature can't be sustainable without us, and we can't be sustainable if there is no nature. So by 2047, I think we would have figured out a way of addressing this false dichotomy if we can. Thank you.
Sulipta, you want to add something before
Thank
we
you very
close?
much. I just couldn't stop myself, and I feel this 1 hour is very short to discuss about water and the diversity and the expertise. So all of you spoke, and it was like a cakewalk. I think AI was a cakewalk. Climate science that we brought just sounded like cakewalk, and I'm amused by the rich, discussion that we had. Just one example, I just want to take like 10, 20 seconds. That Hivre Bazaar in Maharashtra is an interesting example. I hope all of us from the sector would know. From 1989, Hivre Bazaar is one of the village in Maharashtra which had made around 80 to 90 millionaires. They have changed their way from water poverty or poverty to a prosper village. And this happened with community leadership and village leadership. And all they did was rainwater harvesting, water conservation, focusing on ecology, tree plantation. And it's a beautiful example. And all what I saw here is kind of leading to two things. One, it's pointing to systems that we talk about, systems, the various integration that needs to happen, the siloed approach, bringing us to integration and integration towards systems thinking or systems change. And I believe that all of us are system leaders and sectoral leaders. It gives us an opportunity to think about how, as a sector and system leaders, we can be more risk informed in terms of water security, water scarcity, leverage the technology and innovation. As leaders, how do we make this knowledge and information accessible to the communities that we work? And how do we mobilize resources in terms of unlocking capital, leveraging partnerships, in policies in place, so that the systems level transformation can water actually happen by 2047, from where we could go from water scarcity to water resilience. Yeah, that's it. And I could see a beautiful collaboration happening already. Can't wait to meet and talk to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
No, it was been pleasure listening to all of you, and I would not risk summarizing everything, uh, but we are on YouTube, so we'll continue to dialogue there with the. So there was one question which was largely about quality of water, particularly the subsurface water. Probably we run out of time. But what I've learned today, at least two things I would love to highlight. One is that water security is a social governance issue as well as a formal governance issue. So both have to work. You spoke very eloquently, Kiran, on the why we need to work with the panchayats and the FPOs, and you spoke about so much about how we need to govern the ecosystems. Second, I thought the the solution is largely about partnerships, and farmers can really offer credible can be credible partners, not only in small things but also in the bigger realm of things like managing ecosystems and river systems and so on and so forth. So I think we in by 2047, not we can't wait for that. Maybe in next few years, we need to really change the profile of farmers' participation in decision making. And I think that's one learning which I'm taking forward today. That I think the entire stereotypical image of a farmer who's illiterate, who's village bound, etc. That's not what the 21st century farmer is, and by 2047 they should be leading on the entire ecological issues, which will be much more serious compared to what we are seeing right now. I think we are only going to have from bad to worse. Thank you so much. Pleasure. Over to you guys.
Yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
So, good afternoon, one and all. I welcome you in our next Parisamvad session, which is sediment dynamics, reservoir, sustainability, and innovative strategies. So, for this session, I invite our three speakers: Professor Manish Goyal from IIT Indore, Dr. Harinarayan Tiwari from Soft Solution, and Ms. Harsita from Deputy Director CWC, Central Water Commission. So, first, I would like to explain this session. So in this session, we will discuss about reservoir sedimentation and present techniques and traditional techniques, and also what challenges we are facing. So this reservoir sedimentation has become one of the most important and challenging thing in this 21st century, and this is creating a very huge issues in our hydropower as well as our normal reservoirs. So sediment deposit not only reduce storage capacity but also affects our hydropower generation, flood control, and irrigation reliability. So with the increasing watershed degradation, extreme hydrological events, and climate variability, the problem is becoming even more complex and urgent in the 21st century. In this session, we'll try to bring our experts, speakers, and researchers who are joining online, working on the fundamental sediment process, monitoring techniques, and modeling approaches, and practical engineering methods aimed at improving reservoir sediment sustainability and sedimentation problem. So I welcome all our speakers. So I would introduce our first speaker, Professor Manish Goyal, who is Chair Professor and former Dean of Infrastructure Development at Indian Institute of Technology, Indore. He is recently featured in the list of top 2% scientists in the world prepared by Stanford University in 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. His research interests include flood modeling, wetland environment, agriculture, climate change, artificial intelligence, and remote sensing GIS applications in water resources engineering. He worked as research assistant at University of Waterloo, Canada. He went to pursue further research as postdoctoral fellow at Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and McGill University, Canada. He was visiting professor at University of Nebraska, USA, and he is also in Greece. So Dr. Goyal holds 10 book, 35 book chapters, and more than 150 technical research publications. He has supervised 15 PhD and 8 postgraduate students in last 10 years. Our next speaker, our next speaker, Dr. Harinarayan Tiwari, who is the co-founder of Floodcon Consultant Limited, advisor, Pendant Soft Solution Private Limited. Since 2019, Dr. Tiwari is the managing director of Floodcon Consultants Limited, and backed by the research and consulting experience of 12 plus year across the water resources development and management. He is a well-known expert in river engineering, flood and drought, dam engineering, reservoir sedimentation, and water resources modeling, project planning strategies, and climate change science. And our last speaker, MS Harsita. MS Harsita is a Deputy Director at Central Water Commission, Ministry of Jal Shakti, New Delhi. with experience in water resources and hydropower engineering. She holds an ME in water resources and environmental engineering from the Indian Institute of Sciences, Bangalore, and BTech in civil engineering from NIT Calicut. Has currently enrolled for the doctoral studies in water resources in IIT Delhi. Since joining the Central Water Commission in 2014, she has worked on design and planning of several hydropower and water resources projects, particularly in the northern part of India. Her expertise includes hydraulic design, reservoir sedimentation, numerical modeling, and has various techniques publication in these fields to her credit. So we have three well-known speakers for discussing the reservoir sedimentation issues and sustainable solutions. So myself, Professor Manish Pandey, and I am Assistant Professor in Department of Civil Engineering, IIT Kharagpur, and I will chair this session. So I once again welcome our all the speakers. So I will start this session with one basic thing. This is the fundamental understanding of our reservoir sedimentation and sustainability. And this question, one by one, I will ask with each speaker. So, what are their views and how we can face such challenges? So, first, I will ask Professor Goel.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Pandey, for nice introduction, and thank you so much in this Resilience and Sustainability Summit at ICAR IIT Roorkee. I think before we go to reservoir sedimentation, we need to understand that why the reservoirs are required. How many reservoirs are there in the country? So, requirement of the reservoirs, how many reservoirs are there, how much storage is there, and then what are the benefits they are giving to me as a society or as an individual. If the sedimentation goes there, what are the benefits which I as an individual or as a society will deprive of them? That's why I'm worried about it. That's why we are scientists here to understand this issue of sedimentation. That's why we are professors here to research on this issue of sedimentation. Government agency like CWC, they are monitoring the reservoir operations or reservoir storage capacity. So if you see, we have already 1.4 billion population in the country. Water demand and energy demand are continuously increasing day by day. This is true not only in India but across the globe, that water and energy, they are going day by day. So once water and energy, they are going to, how to meet these demands? How to meet these demands, water demands and energy demands? So one way to meet the demand is to create the storage. That's very simple things. There is a river coming at one place. River may be coming very, higher speed. I'll have a very open ground. We can store the water and then slowly it will become a reservoir, isn't it? So once these reservoirs are there, these reservoirs are helping me in terms of hydropower, in terms of irrigation, in terms of drinking, in terms of navigation, or in terms of going here and there. So several things or aspects I am doing it with these kind of reservoirs. So once these reservoirs are there, I'm also producing hydropower. So these are developing the energy for me. These are the part of drinking water. These are the part of irrigations. So once I have all kind of benefits from these reservoirs, and how many reservoirs are there in the country? There are more than probably 19,000 reservoirs across the country. Some of these reservoirs are large, some are medium. We have a very famous Hirakund dam reservoirs. We have Bhakra Nagal reservoirs. We have a Sardar Sarovar dam reservoirs. We have a Omkareshwar dam reservoir. So many, these are very famous big dam reservoirs. And from where we also have irrigation facility, we have a drinking water facility, we are also generating hydropowers. Once all these storage capacities are there, and I'm taking as a benefit of all these 19,000, more than 19,000 reservoirs, CWC is monitoring some of these reservoirs with their live, they have some kind of a data where they can have a live kind of monitoring. So now the question comes, how do I maintain it for next generation? Because here we are talking about the sustainability, resilience and sustainability. So here the reservoir, how to link the reservoir with sustainability? Can I sustain these reservoirs for next 50 years? Next 100 years? If I am able to sustain these reservoirs for next 50 years or next 100 years. What action should I take as a part of government organization so that their sustainability will be there for next 100 years? So the question comes of sedimentation that my friend Professor Pandey is talking to me. So once the water comes with the sediment and the speed or velocity reduces, sediment deposits on these beds of the reservoirs. And once it deposited, it reduces the capacity or original capacity for which it was designed. Many of the reservoirs across the country has been reduced the storage capacity of 10% to 30%. And it's keep growing. Once the storage capacity is reducing, it will not fulfill my purpose, either irrigation, either drinking water, navigation, hydropower. Then they are not fulfilling the purpose. Once they are not fulfilling the purpose, how do I ensure that they will fulfill the purpose? What kind of measurement should I take? What are the techniques I should adopt? So this is a big issue that we are trying to address it here. So with this, I think, I hope, yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Manish, for this inclusion in this particular group, where we are discussing about the reservoir sedimentation and whether the issue is real. That already Professor Goyal said that we have a requirement of reservoirs, because as a community, since last 5 to 10,000 years, we are dealing with the reservoir. It's not new for us. We are storing a water, because at the time when we are getting a water rainfall or some amount of rainfall, we are not directly able to utilize all the water. So storage is the need. And for that storage, we are making a different kind of reservoirs. And in the reservoirs, when water is coming, obviously water is coming through the lands. And in the land, there are soils and particles, which is coming as a sediment, as a part of that particular system. So when sediment came to the reservoir system already, which is a kind of damming we are creating for water for our different purpose. So water is getting slow and this sediment is getting down over there. As Professor Goyal already mentioned, that we are losing our capacity. If I just simply give an example, that suppose we required a 10 liter of water, but for some kind of interventions or some kind of practices, we are getting only the 80 liter of water. So that means we are a deficit of that quantity of 20 liter, which that means we have to take care of that from where we are getting those water. So this is a very basic needs that reservoir sedimentation we need to understand. And the thing why it is happening, when you are going to the root cause, because earlier there was a reservoir, we thought when we are designing, we are thinking lots of items. But why the reservoir sedimentation is getting a burning issue? Because now our dams and reservoirs are getting aged. Because earlier, suppose if this is a new some reservoir which was made last 2 years ago, so that is only 2 years ago, so there is a little sedimentation. So maybe there is not an issue of capacity and something. But when our age is getting increased, reservoirs age is getting increased, so we are getting more sediment on that. And then that is becoming an issue that the capacity is getting decreased. Right now, like as per Indian status, there are some study or reports which says that almost we lose around 16 to 18% of reservoir capacity. So you understand that if you required 100 liters and you already lose the 16 liter of water due to those particular item which is happening naturally. It's not like that. And the second item which is enhancing those things, that is our activities. Because only not the naturally the any silt is coming or sediment is coming to the reservoir. Why it is coming in the in the quantity it is coming more? Because anthropogenic activity which is happening upstream of the reservoir. If you are understanding a water set, suppose there is a reservoir in particular area, X location. So in the upstream of that location, there are some catchment area, from there the rainfall is coming to the reservoir and it is storing there. So in that catchment, there are lots of trees, there are lots of settlements and everything is there. When trees are binding the material, soil materials, because all know that when there is a tree, or vegetations are there, so it is binding the soil material or earth material. So the loss of those material is less. But when we are losing a forest, when we are losing some other kind of items which is trying to bind those particles, so it is coming to the reservoir. So the rate is also intensifying in the reservoirs, and the prediction is like that till 2050 or something like that, we lose almost 50% of the our reservoir capacity. So that means we lose a quantity of water, we lose a quantity of energy, because right now we are also having a focus on hydropower energy. That means we are relying on water. So that means we have to thought about that. It's a real challenge, and it's a kind of challenge. Maybe we will discuss in a later section. That means how we can reduce or mitigate those issues, because maybe we cannot eliminate those issues, because as a human being we have started those problems. We have in sync of nature how we can work. So I'm just passing this to Harshita for her views.
Thank you. Myself Harshita. So thank you, ICAR, for this opportunity given to me. Right now, though I'm working in CWZ. Right now, I'm exactly not, because I've enrolled for my postdoctoral, but still with the experience that I had in CWZ and regarding the topic that we are under discussion right now, I'm thankful for Pandey sir to give that, introductory thing about what is the need for us to, look into this particular aspect. So to add on to what he has already said, what really happened, if you look the trajectory of how reservoir sedimentation, how the technical fraternity looked into reservoir sedimentation, you'd observe that about 1960s, yeah, rather 1970s tak, you'll find that reservoir sedimentation was imbibed as a issue which had to be taken up by the future generation. It was never considered as an issue at all. Now, because the entire world, including India and the rest of the world, were busy building dams, because they had only dam engineering was building up the, the emphasis. So what are the effects of dam engineering, or how to manage the effects of dam engineering in a longer run? That was never, human cannot easily, everything they cannot anticipate. So the issues of reservoir sedimentation is one such. Unless otherwise, at least once you have not faced, now you can't actually appreciate, or rather realize, okay, this is what the issue is. So till about 1950s, 1960s, if you see throughout the world literature, global literature also, you will understand that reservoir sedimentation was always thought to be a problem which should be dealt by the future generation. It is a issue which will come so far that we need not be bothered. But when dams increased, as we say, all throughout the world, you will find that there are certain zones in the world which have a high sedimentation. Like you have China, the Himalayan belt, which includes a part of India also, and other parts of some parts of South Africa, etc., where the sedimentation started, showing its significantly impacting aspect of it. So it's then that we slowly started looking into how to start mitigating it, or how to start managing it. And then onwards, if you see the importance of it, as Sir said, how sedimentation is affecting it, how exactly it is hitting our benefits. That was actually now, people started estimating it, they started putting down numbers to it. Now, coming down to the same fact, how we Indians perceived it, almost the same trajectory was taken in India also. If you see, governments has also taken all that in the same manner, as in how it got reflected in the rest of the world. We also started realizing, okay, because we are also a country which had a huge population to support. And in the initial independence, after post-independence time, when we were hungry with our dam building for food security, after about 3 decades or so, that was slightly got down. So dam building is now secondary. Now we started looking into what is the effects. So you will find also, if you see the steps which are taken up by the government also, then we have also started, first realizing how much we have been hit. So if you look into the history, the government took up all that, assessing how much reservoir sedimentation has happened. All that initial steps started being taken from 1970s, 1980s. If you look back into the histories of the government also, all those steps were taken up. And now after all that 1930s onwards, if you see now, after about 2 to 3 decades of that, now we are in a position just to understand we have been hit by reservoir sedimentation to this much. In the sense, to add on to the statistics that Harry had told now, we would find that we have about 5,000 large dams in India, one of the largest in the world. Out of that, about 20% of the gross storage is now lost to the reservoir sedimentation, and out of about 9 to 10% of the live storage is lost. Now, everybody knows that water is always short. We are a country where water is scarce in that sense, if you're talking. So dams were supposed to address our needs. And if you're losing the dam, the storages, in this rate, how far can we sustain? So about only 290 to 300 BCM of storage we are able to provide right now. The government and the country is looking forward for building new dams, no doubt in that. But having said that, if you also realize most of the big dams have already been built. We are in the pursuit to find new dam sites, but space is, with time, space is going to be a limited quantity only. It is not going to be available plenty. So it is our duty, I mean the entire technical fraternity, the government, the public, everybody's duty also to take care of whatever is there. Now, nowadays, the dam aging, as far as dam aging is concerned, we are moving into a thought process where we believe that dams are not now going to have a definite design life. If you manage it, we can increase the life. We can make it sustainable. So reservoir sedimentation is also for the dams which are already built. We have to kind of concentrate on the operational aspects so that we can increase the dam's life and benefits. While for dams which are now in the planning stages, we should include more aspects of sediment management right at the beginning of its design stage itself. Because in the long back, sedimentation was not an important aspect in the design stage. But right now, that understanding is there, and we are all, and since all the people, including us, are taking that seriously when we are designing the dams.
Thank you all. So I'll move to my next question. So as we have all three experts from different areas, like one from academics, one from industry, and one from government organization. So my next question to Professor Goyal. So as an academician and researcher and as a faculty, so what kind of research work you are conducting on reservoir sedimentation related issue, and how we can handle such issues, like if we can follow some sustainable goals also. So I want some views from your side.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Pandey. It's very, very interesting questions. Today, we are living in the era of the climate change. So, as a hydrologist or as a water resources manager, what's going to be happening in and around me in the era of the climate change? Whatever rainfall comes, 3 months or 4 months time, that's occurring in a 35 days to 40 days. This is the first change that we see almost across the India. So the amount of rainfall, although it's same, but the rainfall intensity is higher. So once the rainfall intensity is higher, it is creating much more troubles in terms of reservoir sedimentation. So this is the one aspect of climate change that we are working on. Because this climate change, the number of rainy days has been reduced. And rainfall intensity has increased. So once the rainfall intensity has increased, it is creating the erosion, sedimentation, all kind of things, and sediment less than water is coming to our reservoirs, and it is getting deposited into the reservoirs. Once it is getting deposited into the reservoirs, next question comes: how do I measure it? Is there any technique? Is there any mathematical formula for which I can measure it? So there are many techniques available in the literature. People are doing it based on earlier as well. Now people are doing with help of remote sensing and artificial intelligence. So how much suspended matter is there? What kind of sediment you have? So you have some kind of a remote sensing method where you can have different kind of wavelength, which either absorb or reflect. So based on observation and reflectance of these wavelengths, I can get some idea how to measure the amount of sediment is there. Like I can give you an example. There was a study in Vidisha, Madhya Pradesh. There is a reservoir called Samrat Ashok Reservoir, in which I think they have last 10 years, 1 decade, I think they have done the study. They found out that reservoir sedimentation is or loss is around 0.9% per annum. So that has come out from the remote sensing. And these remote sensing techniques are handy in nature. I need not to invest too much money in terms of time and energy. Because if I go for the sedimentation of the reservoir of several square kilometers with a bathymetry and taking manual, it will take months together. So can I reduce this month together time in a few days with help of the remote sensing, with help of WebEye? Yes, remote sensing can do it with certain accuracy, with 80% accuracy, 90% accuracy. So as a manager or as an administrator, that data is sufficient to me, whether I can get the sedimentation loss or how much sedimentation is there or how much is it is reducing the capacity of the reservoir. So with that an idea, I can measure, I can find out some techniques, I can take some kind of remedial measures, probably for which we will talk about the next questions. Okay, thank you.
So now suppose you have given some solution or some maybe reservoir, that much reservoir sedimentation we are getting in the reservoir. So after that we will go to remove this reservoir sedimentation. So as an academician, I cannot go and I cannot participate for the tender. So for this thing we will take the help of industry. So I will ask my next question to Dr. Hari Narayan Tiwari. So what are the different techniques and strategies you are following to remove this excess sediment, and after how many years or how many months or maybe how many time we have to remove this excess sediment so our reservoir will work perfectly? Because as an agriculture based country, our irrigation is completely depending on this reservoirs, because nowadays we cannot rely on climate. So through reservoirs, so many canal junctions, so many water pipelines are going on. And also hydropower, if reservoir capacity will reduce, so our hydropower capacity will also reduce. So after what time we have to remove this sediment, and what different techniques we have to apply to remove this sediment? So please give your views.
Yes, actually, I would like to give a brief background. As since last 15 years, we are working in water resources, and specifically regarding the sediment transport and the removal of sediment. It's a very big task in terms of technicalities also and in terms of finance also. Because when you are just thinking about that reservoir silt removal, or it's called as a dredging of any reservoir area. So it's a very much lengthy and costly task. Sometimes it is like that you can make a new dam over that to make a dredge or reservoir. So that is a question of like that in a circle, whether it is optimized or not. So the first point is that we try to minimize the issue with the design, because that is one of the important parameters, because dredging is one of the issue which is a costly affair, and obviously it would be compared with that how the dam's reservoir lives. That means suppose if the life is 5 years and you have to invest more than 200 crores rupees over there, so no one is going to invest. So the simple solution is that leave that reservoir area and make a new dam. But when you are leaving those areas, those can be dangerous also for some particular threats. So mitigation is one of the issue which can be taken up, like one of the mitigation plan is catchment area treatment, because every sediment is coming from the catchment. And we know that in the catchment area, what's happening that there are lots of activities, like we are making houses, we are making some other activities in catchment. And there is one interesting studies, just few days back, I have seen that that studies by some of the agencies who is doing studies on earthquakes. And there is I also wonder that how earthquake is related with reservoir sedimentation. So what's happening that in Himalayan region, there is a study in last 5 to 6 years, there are multiple micro earthquakes, micro level earthquakes is having a frequency less than 3. Then what's happening? Due to that earthquake, the event of landslide has increases. So it's connected. Yeah, if you just realize that due to that earthquake, landslide increases, and landslides, it is bringing lots of sediment to the any water set to the river or reservoir. So in that case, monitoring is very much important. That means in your area where you're trying to develop a reservoir or already it is developed. So how to monitor those things apart from that, because as a like expert, when I'm thinking as an expert, so maybe I'm thinking only about the sediment. But when you think as a wholesome manner, so then you have to thought also about, okay, earthquake is linked with landslides, landslide is linked with sedimentation, and then it is coming to the reservoir area. So when instrumentation also we have to plan like that, it is integrated, so that suppose if you are giving any kind of statistics, suppose I am giving as a designer, I am giving the life of reservoir is of 50 years. So at least reservoir must be more than 50 years. It should not be less than 50 years. So that should be considered. The second thing is that during the design, because when reservoir cleaning, there is a kind of spillways which we are talking generally about. It's a sluice from where when we are opening a sluice in the downside of the dam, it is having a high pressure and a speed. So silt is getting washed out of that sluice. But generally what happening in practice, this sluice closed during the operation. So that in the design, why it is getting failed in the real practice, that we have to thought about that, whether that design is not sufficient, or what we are design parameters we are taking for that particular reservoir sedimentation removal, that is not sufficient. And the third thing, suppose if we are also able to remove those sediment from the either from the upstream, either it is going to the downstream. So where it will go? So that comes to simply uses of those sediments. So that is also important. Suppose if we are able to utilize those sediment or silt, either it is in a reservoir area or in fact in simple river, because river is also, there is a siltation problem in lots of rivers. In fact, in the downstream of side of river, there are lots of siltation issues. Just last day, we went to one of the site where there is an issue in the downstream of the dam site. There is a lots of sedimentation issue. So what they are trying to do, actually, they are trying to dredge those sediment and silt, and they are trying to utilize as a like a construction material. So that is a thing that you have to also think about, that the different purposes, what we can feel that, because for a reservoir, it is a wastage. That means it is creating a problems. But sometimes when you are getting it dredged, going for an industry from some alternate works, maybe it will get some revenue item for you. So that is the purpose. And thank you.
I would like to add something, whatever Dr. Tiwari just said. Can we have some kind of a policy where the silt, which is there either in the reservoir or in the river, that can be turned out into the revenue? Can we have some kind of a model for that? Can we have some kind of a policy which will come into the action? Because this is not the problem of today. For I can see for next 2 decades, this problem is getting especially located across the India. We have around 20,000 reservoirs. And this problem lies with almost all the reservoirs in next 2 decades and in many of the rivers. So can we have a policy? Can we come out with the policy framework at either national level or at the regional level, which will turn this silt into a revenue scheme? So this will help not only in terms of money, but also help the environment. And that's how we can probably, whatever the objective of this workshop or the conference, resilience and sustainability, can we make sustainable in terms of money and in terms of environment? Thank you so much.
So thank you for your views. So he gave solution and he implemented some techniques to remove this excess sedimentation, like dredging or by operating the underwater sluices, or maybe siphoning or some external pumping. But after that, what is the role of CWC? How Central Water Commission is working on it, and what guidelines they are providing? Like I was also supposed to ask this question, do CWC has any guidelines on the reuse of this siltation or this deposited silt or sedimentation, which can be a asset for our state or maybe for our country? So, and what exact technique, because we have number of techniques, so what exact technique CWC supports? So this is for you, because you are from the government side.
To be frank, this is a wild question which can't be answered by me personally. But having said that, I just want to add one point to this. I understand that the technical fraternity, everybody is getting, bowled by the fact that our reservoirs are getting sedimented. What will we do with the sediment? Are we really late? Our reservoirs are getting lost. What is this? What is that? Yes, I understand the tension that is creeping into the managers and also the technical people. But having said that, what I feel is we are yet not late. We are yet not late in understanding what exactly is happening with each reservoir. We are yet not late to understand whether one particular sedimentation aspect is only important in one basin, which basin it is more critical, which basin is not critical. We are yet not late in understanding where I have to concentrate and where we have not yet understood what to be. So in this aspect, for example, what I would like to say is there are a lot of sedimentation management methods which are there. Now, CW is having, under the DRIP program, we are actually issued certain guidelines as to how the sediment management has to be done. So there are few guidelines there. We have a compendium of siltation of reservoirs, which give you, it is regularly issued, I guess, 4 or 5 years, once in 4 or 5 years, which give you an idea about what is the reservoir sedimentation which happens in various reservoirs. But I know the reservoir number is like quite less, like 200 plus reservoirs out of this 5,000 big reservoirs which is there. But yet it gives you an indication. Okay, Himalayas is having this sediment yield. Godavari basin is having this sedimentation yield. Mahanadi is having this sedimentation yield. So what I would urge primarily, now CWZ and none of the government organizations right now have not come out to any kind of concrete saying this is what you have to do. We are also on the path of finding out what is it. But what I would urge the people who are there in the ground is to please refer back to these guidelines to get a feeling of what things have to be done. Second, for example, this compendium will give an understanding, okay, if my project is in this part of the country, I may or may not be having this issue. If I'm in Himalayas where the sediment yield is 2.6 mm per kilometer square, yes, I am in that, alarming zone. If I'm only in Kaveri where it is not much, then I'm not. So that kind of an understanding should be first there in the person who is managing it. Secondly, there are lots of sediment management methods which have been recognized and documented by the engineers. But you will have to understand what is the best for your project. If your project is hydropower, it is a pure ROR. Maybe the mechanisms that you use for storage will not work there. For storage, the basic idea is that you collect the volume of water which you receive. About 80 to 90% of the water comes in that 3 to 4 monsoon years. You collect it, you allow the water to stand there, so you're having a bigger standing time, which leads to the full deposition. So whatever sediment comes there gets deposited there, and it's like adding up. But that is not the logic which happens in ROR. There the standing time is very less. You have the opportunity of using the monsoon period itself to use your flushing, sluicing, those methods to actually at least flush up some part of it. So the operational aspect, what your project is, what is the purpose of the project, how you operate it, that should also be taken and considered by the developers, or rather the managers. And only then you can start understanding how to incorporate it. Now, in fact, the dredging, if you see, to be frank, dredging cannot be called as a good, method of, because it is too, if you talk in terms of the volume, we are talking in terms of BCMs and MCMs. Okay, BCMs and MCMs means it is beyond anybody's imagination, how much amount of days you will take even to, extract. So maybe for some small things, for small local, some desilting chambers have to be cleared, or some small check dams have to be cleared. Those kind of methods can be. But for larger dams, which we are actually more bothered about, we'll have to go into some sustainable other methods like sluicing, fleshing, or dam operation methods. So all of us are trying for it, though we have not yet come down to a concrete answer, ki this is the best for that. We have not reached there. But one thing that I urge is, please look into the operation pattern, what is the purpose of your dam, and then come down to and study all the sediment management practices. Actually, when you talk in the outside, only one or two methods are being discussed. Always dredging is discussed. Okay, dredging is done. But there are a lot of other methods. You have to actually go into and study individually for each of your project and understand which is the best for your project. You should not go by this general tendency of the public. Okay, this is that. So at least since we are all from the technical background people, we should not get carried by that kind of common layman thought process. We should sit down, think what is my project, study, okay, whether it is a removal process which is important, whether it is a passing of process which is important, whether the erosion process which is important. Yeah, adaptive strategies. So I have to go into each of those processes, whether pressure flushing, whether it is dredging, whether it is you're managing the sediment, whether it is operating. So each of those sediment management techniques will have to be studied particularly for my project and then come down to a result.
Yeah, I think I can add one more method for sedimentation management. There's one method called watershed management that people talk about, and people do practice in several parts of India. I have seen in Madhya Pradesh. What they do, they go for forestation. So kind of different kind of trees, shrubs, and various kind of forestation techniques they will put. And in addition to the forestation, they also go for check dams, where they can store, the sediment which is there in that water, so that water goes and sediment remains same. So kind of afforestation come check dam. This is also one of the technique that is used for watershed management or soil conservation in order to mitigate or reduce the impact of sedimentation in the larger reservoirs.
Yeah, I do agree with you. So, in continuation with this discussion, so I have read some papers, some articles on reservoir sedimentation, how they are developed countries, they are capturing this sediment in the upstream of the reservoir. Like in Japan, there is a dam, I don't know the exact name of Japan, but they provided some bypass tunnel. So at the upstream side in 1910, and it is working perfectly. But in our most of the reservoirs, old reservoirs, we provided these sluice gates, underwater sluice gates, and these are not working properly. These are choked because of the excess sedimentation. So can you give your views on this? Why these underwater sluice gates were choked?
Actually, there are 2, 3 items. When we are trying to design any kind of dams and reservoirs, at that time, the availability of data, because when we started dam designs initially for our food security and other purpose, so at that time, we are having a limited data sets. So in that data sets, we did our best things. It's not like that why it's choke, but it is a practical things, or it is a also visible things that it is not working. Somehow the reservoir is getting sedimented. What we thought for 30 years, now it is only 10 years. We are getting the same silt over there. So that is one of the fact. But thing is that now we should focus on the collection of data, as Arshita also mentioned that we should focus on project by project basis, that whether that project is located in Himalayan zone or southern, where there is a less chance of sedimentation due to their geographical characteristics, because it's depend on the geography of the area. India is versatile, having versatile geography. And the second thing what she also mentioned, that the development of your own management system or project based management system. So one of the system, like we are creating a kind of rule curve for the dams and reservoir operations. That means how you have to operate so that it will work optimally. So that should be on the focus side. And what you mentioned about the Japan, actually Japan, there is one kind of dam. It's a silt dam. They are using generally it is termed as a silt dam in an international term. Locally, they are calling as a Sabu Dam. So what they are trying to trap the silt before it is reaching to the reservoir positions specifically. So that is one of the thing. But the consecutive thing is also that suppose if we are trying to make a water sediment deficit, so it will having a different impact also. Because one of the very classical example of watershed management to check the silt is the Yellow River Basin of China. So they tried to catch the silt so that now the Yellow River, uh, it has become sediment, access to sediment deficit. So where is a boundary line? It is also important for a researcher where to put a boundary line. Okay, if the more afforestation, so because earlier when we are not making any reservoir or any damming on our river system, so it is totally natural. Suppose our requirement put the things, we can say it's a quite not totally unnatural, but it's not completely natural. We are that means we are trying to change something in nature, so it will create a issue. So second thing is that when we are doing any kind of practice or like we are always talking about the supply, because right now what we thought that okay, our population is 140 crores, so we required this amount of water. That means how we can supply. So but the thing is that it is like it is not directly linked, as I earlier mentioned that something is indirectly linked. That is a demand side management. How we are doing a demand side management also, which is also a need of our for everything, like any silt issues we are also getting because we required lots of water, lots of power. In a per capita power requirement, water requirement is getting increased. So can we go it because we are talking about sustainability. So sustainability obviously come when we also shrink our demand. It is, but it is not easy to digest like people. We are living in a urban space. We required every time 24-hour electricity, 24-hour water in a running water in more quantity. So can we reduce our demand? So that is one of the framework which we have to also include in our sedimentation part, so that the total framework which we are making, it is really sustainable. Otherwise, sometimes we are making a framework on the paper, it looks like that, but until and unless the demand will be less, obviously our purpose in engineering, it is getting a bit lesser. I will not say it will eliminate the things, but it is getting bit lesser. So demand side management is also one of the things which we can add.
Add one point to it in the sense what could be the possible methods which can be added. Now, if you broadly classify the different methods for sediment management of a reservoir, you can say that first one is the one you actually minimize the sediment which is coming, under which those examples come where check dams are coming. You have the CAT, which is a catchment area treatment methods and all. Yes, a part of it is being done in India. The government has been successful in doing that. There are plenty of examples, I guess Maharashtra, there few basins are very famous for it also. Now, another second set of methods is the method which actually bypasses the reservoir. You have a reservoir in the path of the river, you have sediment coming, you trying to bypass it. So that bypassing either by means of bypass tunnels, or you have another reservoir exclusively only for reservoir sedimentation. Now, the third set of methods which is required is like you allow the sediment-laden water to enter the reservoir, but you don't allow it to settle and become a problem. I just pass it off. Okay. So under that, you have all this sluicing and all that. And then you have another set of things, which is like, okay, I'll do those things in which the already deposited sediments I'll remove, where we come out with this dredging, empty hydraulic flushing and all. And then you have an adaptive wear, which does not come, none of them comes. We're like, okay, I live with whatever is happening, or I'll slightly change my operation, or I will increase the height of the dam so that the benefit of the reservoir is managed. So that is like an adaptive. So adaptive strategies are more like, the dam is already built and it's there, and now what to do with it. So if you look this all these methods, for example, as you said, already I raised one of the same point that I raised before also. You have to see what your project is. Please don't blindly follow, which, to be frank, I find that a lot of people are doing. Secondly, please consider sedimentation management of the reservoir as one of the key parameters in your design as well. Now, in the olden days, what happened is you had a general understanding, okay, what is the sediment yield is happening annually? Let me come down to a zero elevation. This is a maximum sedimentation is going to happen. Above that, all of the storage is every time available for me. But due to X, Y, Z reason, it is now proven from our bathymetric studies or otherwise also, our sediment yield which we anticipate, always more is coming. So that means we have to be very cautious about the fact that the amount of storage which I am assuming will only be eaten up by the sedimentation is not that storage. It is going to be more. So if I always receive more sediment, how can I manage it? That kind of a thought process should come in a person who is designing the dam. So for example, of lately, if you see many of the dams which we are also developing, we are trying to. Many of the dam, not only CWC design projects, even otherwise also, the guidelines are also saying, please go for low level sluices. We are not talking about sediment sluices, we're talking about the spillway sluices. Now, there is a difference between the sediment sluices and spillway sluices. The sediment sluices, as we saw, again for XYZ reason, let us not go into the reason why it is not working. They are found in many projects where it is not working. That could also be because those sluices were not in operation for a few years when the need was not there. But the spillways, they will always be in operation. In once, at least in an year, it will be in operation because the flood is definitely going to come, you have to pass it. So low-level sluices are a good way of, increasing the lifespan of a project in some sense. Again, if it is a storage, do I have the liberty of wasting my water for just flushing off? Can I go for flushing? Can I go for drawdown flushing where I fully lower the reservoir level to the spillway crest and then, so am I having so much of water? Can I have only a partial drawdown and then operate so that a pressure sluicing happens so that again, so all that again comes down to that project. In that particular project, whether my project was designed, my annual inflow, whether annual inflow is enough that I can meet to my benefits. So what I would like to again and again emphasize is please go down into studying each and every method separately for your project. For example, you had highlighted the point that Japan, the bypass tunnels were there. For example, in Himalayas, bypass tunnels are really difficult. Now, only if you go and study, you will understand. Otherwise, when you are immediately quoting Japan's example, people tend to have a feeling, okay, I can also adopt. So again, maybe it is possible in South India, it is. But in North India, where the bedrock levels are high, where the, bed loads are more, the coarser particles are there, you really have to study to understand whether bypass tunnels are efficient. So this deep understanding should be there right from the design stage. Now, that is what I would urge each and every designers to understand. Project developers and managers definitely, because the existing project developers managers will have to know it. But the new designers should also be equally, sensitized about this fact, because I find that a lot of people still feel that sedimentation is something which is only to be handled in the operation phase and not during the design phase. So this shift has to come, and considering this, all of us are in that part, that should be, this particular information and message should trickle down to every segment of the society.
Yeah, I think I would like to add something. So, whatever my colleague are saying, Dr. Tiwari and Harshita ji, so what we need to come out with the, we have a rainfall from 20 centimeter to 2000 centimeters across the India. We have a Chirapuji Mesram, where you have highest rainfall receiving region. You also have a Bundelkhand, Kutch and Rayalaseema, where there is a very low rainfall. So one policy across the India perhaps is not the right solution for that. Similarly, for the reservoirs, whatever is there in the Himalayan region, they may not work for Kaveri, Periyar or Godavari. So we need to come out with the specific terms and conditions with respect to positions. That's the first aspect. Second aspect is the design. Once these two aspects we are covering across the India, third aspect comes the best management practices across the world. Whatever is there in the North America, that may not work in India, or whatever is there in the Europe, that may not work in that. But hopefully, few items, partially we can take the best management practices from them and we can apply based on our climate, geography, rainfall, whatever conditions are there. So based on these three criteria, especially extensive, design, and best management practices. So I request Professor Pandey to come out with the policy of this.
Yes, definitely.
So with these three aspects, can we develop some kind of a policy framework for Indian reservoir systems? So that will really help to make the resilience of these reservoirs and sustainability of the reservoirs.
So I do agree with you. With respect to state-wise state, we have to make some policies with the help of academic institutes, industrial partners, and government organizations. So my next question. So nowadays we are living in the era of artificial intelligence, machine learning, chat GPT, which we all are using. So can these tools or terms things can we should or can be used by our academicians, engineers, and policymakers? And if yes or no, how? I want to listen your views in this regard because this is a very hot topic nowadays.
Yeah, I think we are living in the era of AI and climate change. So this era is, is giving it's a very unique era for all of us. And we have come out with an era of calculator to Excel to AI and now the chat GPT. Everything is done in the seconds. So how these AI, all kind of chat GPT things can help me in the reservoir sedimentation? There are many models already we have seen in last 20 years. Sweat model, we have done the reservoir sedimentations. HECRAS, we are doing the routings. All kind of things. Can we have some kind of a, kind of a code where we can get the data of the rainfall, data of the sediment transport, and then we can route from which place it will be routed, how much sedimentation will come, and how if I need to do the dredging, what kind of frequency of will be the dredging, if I need to make some kind of a bypass, what kind of bypass should be there, and most important part of all these technicality comes as a cost, because money, without money there is nothing. I will do all these kind of analysis, but money is not there. Probably these are incomplete. So I need a comprehensive sets of AI, which will include technical details and which will include the economics, which will give me the measures as a district administrator or as a part of water administrator, so that I can take the right decisions based on this. So definitely AI and remote sensing, they can definitely help us. Remote sensing is already doing it. Many of the reservoir sedimentation, remote sensing study are continuously going on. People are doing it in ISRO, they are doing it, probably CWC, they are doing it, as academic institution, we are doing it. So many of the reservoir sedimentation study using satellites are doing it, and now the people are putting the AI, to get the more accurate data and predict the reservoir sedimentation issues for the future. Dr. Tiwari?
In this point, actually, my view is bit different. Actually, we are talking about artificial intelligence, specifically in the sediment transport, or it's a kind of water management issues. So in water management issues, the working of AI will come into the act when our data quality will improve, because AI is only working that based on the data sets. The data sets we are having. So in that, I think for a 5-10 years, because government is having a lots of initiative like national hydrology projects and other, where instrumentation is being done for reservoirs and other areas. So after that also we are getting some data, some outliers, some other things. So quality data is the need. And so that I may term this AI as a HAI. It's a human artificial intelligence. Like artificial intelligence is okay because it is making our analysis faster. So, but human intelligence is also needed, because in this case, present days, lots of people are talking about the quality of water data, like rainfalls, other discharge data, sediment data. So what we are taking through the different aspects, like there are involvement of central agencies, state agencies. There is the involvement of certain private parties also. Last day, just I am just listening one of the story from the one of the founder of from IIT Kanpur, I guess. He's doing the work on water data collection. So he specifically, his name is Harsa actually, he specifically mentioned that now we are only the words, that means we are trying to get a quality water data from where either it is in terms of quantity, either it is in terms of sediment volume, either it is terms of velocity and other items, which is also already linked technically. So quality data is one of the need which we required for at least from the other agencies who is also trying to put their investment on that part, so they can thought of that, because these data are the future's assets for anyone. Because suppose if you are having a quality data, so that means you are a master of that, you can manage the things as you want. So that data is also so that lots of startup companies come into that area. They are doing a very good works, and hopefully in a 5-10 years we are getting very good kind of human intelligence, artificial intelligence model for that water management or sediment issues.
Yeah, I kind of, agree with both. In the sense, when you sit and discuss with somebody from a research, they have a lot of ideas. In the sense, you can train your AI to that extent, even you are having the rain, then you get to know what is a discharge and even the sediment load. I mean, that is the wildness to which they are thinking. Okay, I can do this because AI is capable of it. But at the same time, yes, I understand the point that Hari was also highlighting, ki it should not be a garbage in, garbage out. As far as an AI is something that will tell you only based on the data which you give as training input. So if the training input data is not correct, then the answers will also be wrong. But what I feel is all of us are working towards that. So don't be hopeless. What I'm saying is have that hope. The moment, look, there is always some kind of a thrust which has been now pushed by AI in the entire technical field. You have to do things fast. You have to come out with things fast. So now when new ideas like AI, as I said right now, one model you are having a rainfall. You can even predict what is the sediment in that river to that extent. Before it could not have been thought of. Now you can do it. So even if you find the data is not really a good, please don't leave aside your, attempt to develop that model, because that also involves a lot of effort. So we have to move parallel. All of us have to move parallel, while the modelers have to develop models which will help you predict all these things. For example, remote sensing. We are, for example, as far as I know, remote sensing have kind of help know what is a reservoir sedimentation in only maybe about 10 or 20% of the reservoirs which is there in the country. We still are yet to, map what is the reservoir sedimentation in rest of the countries. So we are yet to cross that path of the full estimation of what is a reservoir sedimentation. We are yet to understand. So there are a lot of scope. So please use AI. For example, AI has been used for reservoir sedimentation. Please increase it, expand its horizons to predict this reservoir sedimentation for all the reservoirs in time spans. Now what happened is, if you see 250 reservoirs have been the hydrographic survey has been done over 2 to 3 decades. So you just imagine if AI is able to predict for 5,000, even for 1 month, it is like we are leaping 1,000 years forward, I would say, in that manner. So please don't leave aside any of the aspects which you can develop by means of research, because though a person sitting in the research academia might feel that they are progressing, but the policymakers are not progressing, it's nothing like that. Everybody is progressing. That is why we see something out in the ground. World is moving forward, and we will all be moving forward. Please don't leave any of the aspects untouched. Whenever you feel there is a scope of improvement, please put in your efforts. We are also putting in our efforts. And the water quality data, and as you said, we are of lately there was even a particular program by CWC to ensure the data are getting, all the instruments are getting verified, calibrated. So efforts are going everywhere. So please continue on all the aspects.
If Chairperson allow, I would like to add a few more stuffs. I completely agree with my dear friend Tiwari ji. Data quality is an issue, is a real challenge. Apart from data quality, there is a few more things that I would like to add. Data consistency. Because once I have a quality data, the consistency also matters. Without consistency, it will be difficult for me to run either any other models or apply the AI or HAI that my dear friend is saying. In addition to data quality and data consistency, I think data accessibility is also another important aspect. Many times, some of our agencies, we have a good quality data, we have good consistency data, but the accessibility is limited. So accessibility should be there for budding researchers or for the general public, because the data is collected with the quality and consistency. Why should not be accessible to all of us? So in addition to the data quality, consistency and data accessibility, that I would like to emphasize in the reservoir sedimentation.
Thank you, one and all. Now it's time to conclude this session. So, where we try to discuss from sediment to AI, and we all agreed for the some policies. So, like we have to prepare some map kind of thing where we can highlight like earthquake related map we have. So, in sediment related map also we can highlight in which area we can get more sedimentation, in which area we can get moderate, and in which areas we can get less sedimentation. So accordingly, sediment management we can do. We tried to cover in this session and highlighted the critical importance of the sediment understanding dynamics for the maintaining the long-term sustainability of reservoirs and hydraulic infrastructures. And the speaker and their thoughts, they demonstrated how integrated approaches combining field observation, numerical modeling, this AI, chat GPT, remote sensing, and innovative engineering solutions can significantly improve our ability to manage the sediment related issues in the reservoirs. Because in the 21st this century, we are completely, now we are trying to move to the green energy side. So hydropower, one aspect. So now we just think about policies. So how these academic institutes and industries and government organizations, they can prepare some policies, and we just there is a point, first point, we have to prepare policies, then we have to implement in all the states. So our engineers can easily benefit it from such policies. So directly it will help uh, for our mission 2047. This event's theme is also based on mission 2047. So with this, I thank you all the speakers for your time and your valuable suggestions and views on reservoir sedimentation. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Professor Pandey, for chairing the session. I think we are grateful that you have asked, insightful questions that will ignite the mind for all of us and the people who will listen it later on. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Pandey and ICAR for this opportunity. And I would like to add just one item. That means there is a 3 term actually for our startup firm. We are using that: learn, create, and sustain. So this is our you can say vision and all those things. So that can be followed for sediment transport also. We have to learn, we have created something, and now we have to sustain. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Pandeyji, and thank you, Aikar, for this opportunity. And I hope all these discussions will, finally see its benefits in the form of one or the other day. Thank you so much.